Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Answers by citing the Lord's version. Continuing our daily classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Pariksit was just finished in the previous chapter asking many questions to Sukadeva Goswami. And in this chapter, the answers will be coming forthrightly. So, answers by citing the Lord's version were on text number 8, right?
Yeah, 8.
But I'll read back a couple, but first let me offer my obeisances unto Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, who is the supreme, all-pervading personality of Godhead. I meditate upon that transcendent reality who is the primeval cause of all causes, from whom all manifested universes arise, in whom they dwell and by whom they are destroyed. I meditate upon that eternally effulgent Lord, who is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and is yet beyond them. It is he only who first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahma, the first created being, and to him this world, like a mirage, appears real, even to great sages and demigods. And because of him, the material universes created by the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I meditate therefore upon him, the absolute truth, who is eternally existent in his transcendental abode, and who is forever free of illusion. Lord Sri Krishna Ki Jai. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth which is understandable by those devotees who are pure at heart. Highest truth, reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Sri Vyasadeva, is sufficient in itself for God realization. As soon as one attentively and submissively hears this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, he becomes attached to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Haribo. Reading back a couple texts to connect our brains. The Kali Yuga brain is not very good at remembering things. So we have to go over and over. That's why we have books. In prior ages, simply was things were heard, spoken, and remembered. There was no need for books. But now there's need for books, a lot of books. So our memories are so, always in Kali Yuga, the lifespan is short and our lives are always disturbed by so many things. So our mind is completely disturbed by so many things. and we're unlucky too, by the way. Be unlucky means that you're born into Kali Yuga, which is kind of unlucky, but then there's also an extraordinary amount of luck that can be gained if one happens to come in contact with teachings of Lord Caitanya. Then you have all the luck you could ever imagine. You surpass all the bad luck and all the disturbances. And it doesn't matter if your life is short or long, it'll chant the holy names, you may die now or you might die later, doesn't matter. Hare Krishna. So, Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, this is text number 5, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper directions for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. Number 6. While thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahmaji heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. One of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabets, and both joined to become the wealth of the renounced order of life. Tapa. Text number 7. When he heard the sound, he tried to find out the speaker, searching on all sides. But when he was unable to find anyone besides himself, he thought it wise to sit down on his lotus seat firmly and give his attention to the execution of penance as he was instructed. Text number 8, is that it, right? Text number 8 is today's verse. It's getting exciting to see how Lord Brahma wakes up from his learning situation. Divyam is ears, right? Divyam. Sahasradhyam amoga darshana. Jitan nilatma vijato bayendriha. Atap yata smakila loka tapanam. Tapas tapiyams tapitam samhita. Sounds like a lot of tapasya coming up. Lord Brahma, with the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Lord Brahma underwent penances for 1,000 years by the calculations of the demigods. He heard this transcendental vibration from the sky, and he accepted it as divine. And thus he controlled his mind and senses, and the penances which he executed were a great lesson for the living entities. And thus he is known as the greatest of all ascetics. Lord Brahma underwent severe penances for 1,000 years by the calculations of the demigods. He heard this transcendental vibration from the sky, and he accepted it as divine. And thus he controlled his mind and senses. And the penances which he executed were a great lesson for the living entities. And thus he is known as the greatest of all ascetics. That is the purpose of ascetics. They stay in the transcendental realm, and when they are somehow contacted by the normal population, they give the instructions from above to help those everyday people to rise to a higher level, to raise them up, teach them how to forego sense gratification, teach them to undergo some penance and austerities, and because they have, that's their whole life, and their whole life has given them a channel or a connection to the spiritual world. So the ascetics, their purpose in life is to enlighten others who come to them for instructions. They may be sannyasis, or they may be just great souls living in the forest with no particular designation. It doesn't matter what kind of cloth they wear, or if their hair is short or long or matted or whatever, beards and so forth. Those are the ascetics, and their purpose is to keep everything on a higher level. Their presence is very important, and that's why Lord Ramachandra and all the kings would protect the ascetics in the forest from wild animals and disturbances, so that they could continue to have cherish and to relish that connection to the Supreme at all times, and therefore actually help human society. They live in the forest, but they're still helping human society. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Brahma heard the occult sound, tapa, but he did not see the person who vibrated the sound. And still he accepted the instruction as beneficial for him, and therefore he engaged himself in meditation for 1,000 celestial years. Now, 1 celestial year is equal to 6 times 30 times 12 times 1,000 of our years. Okay, anybody want to calculate that? You go right ahead. His acceptance of the sound was due to his pure vision of the absolute nature of the Lord. And due to his correct vision, he made no difference between the Lord and the sound vibration coming from him, even though he is not personally present. The best way, now we're getting to a point. The best way of understanding is to accept such divine instructions. And Brahma, the prime spiritual master of everyone, is the living example of this process of receiving transcendental knowledge. The potency of transcendental sound is never minimized because the vibration is apparently, while the vibrator is apparently absent. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavad Gita, or any revealed scripture in the world is never to be accepted as ordinary mundane sound without transcendental potency. So that sound of Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound of Bhagavad Gita, the sound of other bona fide scriptures is to be understood as a sound not coming from this world. The instructions are not coming from this world. They're coming from the world outside of this world, teaching the living entities how to get out of this material world. And of course, we know that the sound vibration, we've taught this and we understand it to be that Krishna's name and Krishna himself are non-different. So therefore, when we chant Krishna's names, we should always be thinking like that how am I chanting Krishna's names? Is it coming out nicely? Am I attracting his attention by calling his name in a nice way? Because his name is not different from him. In one sense, separate, in another sense, the same. Achinta Veda Veda. So we want to understand that the sound vibration is completely the same as Krishna himself. One has to receive the transcendental sound from the right source and accept it as a reality and prosecute the direction without any hesitation. The secret of success is to receive the sound from the right source, a bona fide spiritual master. Mundane, manufactured sound has no potency, and as such, seemingly transcendental sound received from an unauthorized person also has no potency. One should be qualified enough to discern such transcendental potency, and either by discriminating or by fortunate chance, if one is able to receive the transcendental sound from a bona fide spiritual master, his path of liberation is guaranteed. So here's a little hint. One should be able to discern, if one is qualified enough to discern what is being heard. It's like Prabhupada says in that chanting, he's talking about the Maha Mantra. So this mantra should be heard from a qualified source. One should not hear this sound from a non-devotee. Sometimes non-devotees chant Hare Krishna. And because of that, he says, it's like milk touched by the lips of a serpent. It seems like milk, but there's actually some poison in it. Because it's self-motivated, it's not for Krishna's pleasure. It's only for the person's pleasure who's chanting. I had a distinct experience of that once. I'm not going to give any details of the name, but it's a kind of a famous person, and he was chanting right next to me, and I could feel this. I just felt this strange non-potency, or whatever you want to call it, strange feeling that I didn't feel when we were just ourselves, the ragtag, beginners in Krishna consciousness. We had no motivations except just to chant Hare Krishna. So we would chant, and it always have this sweet feeling, and I just got this different feeling from this person completely. So there is that is reality that some people chant to attract others and to get some fame or whatever. And so many material contaminations that come into the mind and heart. So, one should be qualified enough to discern such transcendental potency, and either by discriminating or by fortunate chance, if one is able to receive the transcendental sound from the bona fide spiritual master, his path of liberation guaranteed. So if you hear from the right person and you feel it, you can feel it inside, then you know that your path to liberation, freedom from this material world is guaranteed. You can feel it. When you feel trapped, you know when you feel trapped. You know you feel when you feel confused, and you know when you feel you're in the right place. The disciple, however, must be ready to execute the order of the bona fide spiritual master, as Lord Brahma executed the instructions of his spiritual master, the Lord himself. Following the order of the bona fide spiritual master is the only duty of the disciple, and this completely faithful execution of the order of the bona fide spiritual master is the secret to success. Now there's a little more. So I'm going to read something from the Bhagavad Gita in just a minute too. Can you get the Lord Brahma controlled his two grades of senses by means of sense perception and sense organs, because he had to engage such senses in the execution of the order of the Lord. Therefore, controlling the senses means to engage them in the transcendental service of the Lord. The Lord's order descends in disciplic succession to the bona fide spiritual master, and thus execution of the order of the bona fide spiritual master is factual control of the senses. Now, rather than doing what you want to do, you execute the order. Such execution of penances in full faith and sincerity made Brahmaji so powerful that he became the creator of the universe. And because he was able to attain such power, he is called the best amongst all the tapasvis. Tapasvis. And a little from the Bhagavad Gita here at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. If I can find it quickly enough. This is the end of the Bhagavad Gita, text number 78. It's not the last verse, but close to it. I think that's it. Here it is. Text number 75. By the mercy of Vyas, this is Sanjaya speaking now. This is the mystic Sanjaya who has the connection to his heart because of his dedication to his spiritual master Vyasadeva, to see the Bhagavad Gita and to hear the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. By the mercy of Vyas, I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who is speaking personally to Arjuna. So Srila Prabhupada says, Vyas was the spiritual master of Sanjaya. Sanjaya admits that it was by his mercy that he could understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that one has to understand Krishna not directly, but through the medium of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is the transparent medium, although it is true that the experience is direct. This is the mystery of disciplic succession. When the spiritual master is bona fide, then one can hear Bhagavad Gita directly, just as Arjuna heard it. There are many mystics and yogis all over the world, but Krishna is the master of all yoga systems. Krishna's instruction is explicitly stated in Bhagavad Gita, surrender, surrender to Krishna. One who does so becomes the topmost yogi. And this is confirmed in the last verse of the 6th chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham. Narada is the disciple of Krishna as the spiritual master of Vyas. Therefore, Vyas is as bona fide as Arjuna, because he comes in the disciplic succession, and Sanjaya is the direct disciple of Vyas. Therefore, by the grace of Vyas, his senses were purified, and he could see and hear Krishna directly. One who directly hears Krishna can understand this confidential knowledge. It is, if one does not come to the disciplic succession, he cannot hear Krishna. Therefore, his knowledge is always imperfect, at least as far as understanding Bhagavad Gita is concerned. In the Bhagavad Gita, all the yoga systems, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, are explained. Krishna is the master of all mysticism. It can be understood, however, that as Arjuna was fortunate enough to understand Krishna directly, similarly, by the grace of Vyas, Sanjaya also was able to hear Krishna directly. Actually, there is no difference in hearing directly from Krishna or hearing directly from Krishna via a bona fide spiritual master like Vyas. The spiritual master is representative of Vyasadeva also. And according to the Vedic system, on the birthday of the spiritual master, the disciple conducts the ceremony called Vyas Puja. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. And that will conclude the morning class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.